Wow, look at everybody here. This is wonderful. Congratulations, everybody, for getting up so early. And welcome, everybody, to the main object big book study of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I am an alcoholic. My name is David. So, once again, a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I've asked our friend Nancy to read the AA preamble, and I'm going to bring that up on the screen.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nancy. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Thank you.
Nancy, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And so I know we have some folks who are here for the first time, and I'd like to welcome you. And also, if this is one of your first times here, just know we are what is sometimes referred to as a line by line big book study. Meaning we are not a typical big book meeting where, at least in my experience, you go through a chapter at a time. We go line by line, so we go very slowly, and by doing so, what we really find is that unlocks a power in the text that is easy to overstep or not notice when you're going a little bit faster through the text, or at least that's what I've noticed. The other thing that we do is we break the text down into 5 categories, and then we highlight those categories in order to make the book a real useful tool in sharing the message with others. And those categories you can see right here are questions in orange, directions and explanations in green, promises in blue, warnings pink, and then history we typically just leave blank. And then it really helps us to it helps me in my journey to share the message with others, and those categories, and I'll be mentioning them as we go along, and they're going to be posted in the chat as well. So our format is we are going to be going through about a little over a page. Today we're going extra slowly. Today we usually try to get 2 pages or so in, but we're going to go a little bit more slowly, and then I'll speak until about 7 or so, and then we'll open up the meeting for your comments and insights, questions, discussion, all of that. The meeting is being recorded, just FYI, but the only my sort of introductory part gets recorded, and then but what we do is we post that on our we have a YouTube channel, and just FYI, only the audio is recorded, not the video. So we stay within our traditions there. And information about the YouTube channel and all of that is in the chat as well. So today we're starting a new chapter. We finished up We Agnostics, and we're starting on page 58 with how it works. And I obviously I knew after we finished last week, and I've known for a while that we would get to this part, and I almost had a question. I questioned myself. I mean, is it first of all, sort of selfishly, I had to question myself. Do I have anything new to talk about how it works? Because this is probably the part of the big book that we've read the most often. We read it, and we don't read it in this meeting, but we read it in almost every other meeting. And so we're not even going to go through all of how it works. We're just really going to, like I said, get the first page or so and a little after, a couple lines after. But what I found is, once again, it's that power of going slowly. When we look at not only the deeper meaning or the significance of the text, but when we start to think about where Bill was coming from when he wrote these lines and what he was intending, it felt like new things were emerging for me. So my hope is that after today's meeting, you may never hear the beginning of how it works in exactly the same way. And so why don't we jump in? And again, we are on page 58, and at the top, and it starts with the line we're pretty much all familiar with. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Now, the first thing, okay, I promise to not really go word for word, but it's important to hit the first word because there are sometimes mythologies that crop up in our program. And I don't know if anybody else has heard this, but I'll take a vote right now. Has anyone ever heard in a meeting that, well, Bill often said that the only thing he would change about the big book is he would change the word rarely to never? Has anybody ever heard that? Never happened. It's a great story, but Bill's very clear. Au contraire, he's actually, and there's a link there if you want to know more about the story. Bill was very clear. Au contraire, no, we meant rarely. And and when I read the reason why they mean rarely, I think it's important. It's not because of the statistics or whatever. It's not because some people do everything and they still fail. That's not it. It was important to Bill to remain humble, for the fellowship to remain humble, and B, not make a claim that would put the fellowship and its program under the scrutiny of the medical community and other authorities. So I think when you think about that, it really says something to me about my own tendency to want to over dramatize or hammer certain points about the program or the text. And again, like I said, there's a link in the chat that'll talk about that. So rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Now, I have that in green for direction for a couple reasons. But you could also call it a promise. I mean, it's a great promise, meaning that if I thoroughly follow the path, the chances are good that I will not fail. But I thought of it as a piece of direction, and the reason that I did was that I'll ask another question, although you don't have to raise your hand with this. Have you ever experienced feeling frustration with someone who might be a chronic relapser or repeating, the same mistakes over and over and over again. And this is sort of speaking to that. Someone who doesn't thoroughly follow the path. Okay, so let me just, I'm not going to tell you, I'll offer you my own experience and another way of looking at this. So I get very frustrated because Willard keeps going out and getting drunk. And I say to my sponsor, I have such a resentment against Willard. Why doesn't he, do this or do that or do, and my sponsors, and I say, doesn't he know? Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And so my sponsor might say something like, well, David, where is Willard supposed to see about what it's actually like to thoroughly follow the path? And I want to say, well, he goes to meetings, doesn't he? Sponsor says, yes, he goes to meetings, but where in meetings is he supposed to see he's to thoroughly follow the path? And I said, well, from the literature. And I said, well, and the sponsor says, that's a textbook. That's not an example. And I said, well, from other AA members. And basically the sponsor says, no, not other AA members, David. Maybe he's supposed to see that from you. Are you thoroughly following the path? And that's why I think I can see today in my own journey, thoroughly following the path is the greatest 12th step tool I can possess. But it's easier for me to point out what other people aren't doing than to actually thoroughly follow the path. So anyway, let's move on. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. Okay, that's all. I highlighted that in pink as a warning. And again, I think this, I'll go a little bit more quickly through the rest of the text here, but I think it's important to recognize something. We're talking about people who come in and aren't able to grasp the program, aren't able to stay sober. And usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. I know that was a phrase that I heard for years without really thinking about what it means. And again, there are some links in the chat about that. First of all, constitutionally, what does that mean? Constitutionally, and I went back to my trusty 1939 Big Book. Constitutionally means innately part of a person or thing's natural organization. Basically, let's say the way God made that person or thing. So they're incapable of being honest with themselves. And so what kind of conditions lead to somebody being unable to be honest with themselves? And the truth of the matter is, when you look at it, and I'm not going to go too deeply into this, if you want to click on the link, it'll tell you more. But there are a lot of reasons that people may not be able to be honest with themselves that have nothing to do with desire, willingness, seriousness about getting sober. There are things such as borderline personality disorder, narcissistic diseases, mental illnesses, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, all of those conditions can lead somebody to be deprived of the ability for accurate self-reflection. And those people with those conditions can sometimes show up in Alcoholics Anonymous. And why I think that is, well, it's going to tell us why that's important in a moment. The next couple sentences I have, again, as direction, so I have them in green. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. All in green for me. Think about the attitude, not just the facts, not just the words, but the attitude that Bill is conveying here. What's he trying to convey? He's trying to convey compassion and empathy, which again is, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it honestly, first of all, it took me a long time to connect the dots on my own alcoholism. And then once I did, it seems like I immediately forgot about the nature of this disease when it applied to other people. And so what I was intolerant and judgmental towards people who drank. And it took me a long time working the steps to begin to develop what the barest beginnings of what Bill is hinting at here, which is that compassion and understanding. And then we finish out the paragraph with several points that are, rewards. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders. Now, obviously that part is not a reward, but what follows certainly is. But many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. And I also want to touch briefly on this notion of the capacity to be honest. That can mean different things for different people. And in my experience, see, I always thought that the capacity to be honest was this natural ability to open your mouth and always speak truth when I'd be pushing air through my lungs and basically, my lips were moving. But the truth of the matter is, I realize now the capacity to be honest, for me, I don't know about anybody else, the capacity to be honest is not a natural inclination to truth, because through my disease and my character defects, my default setting is a big old liar. And for me, the capacity to be honest, which is a spiritual gift, is more attuned to feelings of guilt, shame, and remorse when I lie or when I'm not truthful. That is how the capacity to be honest manifests in my life. I don't know about anybody else, but that's how it is with me. Or realizing this notion that I've got to go back and clean something up, or else there's a risk. So moving onward, our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. Again, direction. And I think this does two things. Again, as I've said in the past, I think Bill I think everything we are reading today, it could be said that Bill is writing to two audiences with almost two separate messages. One is the newcomer, and the other is the recovered alcoholic. And for the newcomer, with this direction or explanation we just read, he's saying, here's what you can expect when you're in contact with us. You'll hear us share in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. And then for the recovered alcoholic, what he's telling me is, he's saying, David, when you tell your story, here's how you need to frame it. You need to share in a general way, which means in a way that is specific enough about the disease that you know what I'm talking about, but not so specific that like you need to know what class I took in the third semester of my college career when I got, and all the details, all the things in my life that I think make me sort of unique and cool. They may not be interesting or relevant or help carry the message, or most importantly, demonstrate the power of God and the program in my life, because that's what I'm trying to do. The next sentence is a reward. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it. Sorry, that part is a reward. The rest I have highlighted in green as direction. Then you are ready to take certain steps. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, I'm calling that a reward. And maybe I'm speaking too personally here, but in my own case, in my own journey, and I've seen this also in the people that I sponsor, given the insidious nature of the disease, wanting what you have and being willing to go to any length to get it was a direct gift from God in my own life, and continues to be. The other thing that this says to me is that when I look at this, deciding that I want what you have and being willing to go to any length to get it, then I'm ready to take certain steps. Ultimately, I realized in my own journey and the people that I've sponsored over the years, it's a statement about relationships. See, I want to make it just about the person. Well, they're not willing. They're not willing to go to any length. But really, what Bill's talking about there are two specific relationships. First is the relationship between the newcomer and the recovered members. Are they demonstrating the rewards of this program in such a way that the results of the... Okay, let's dial back for a second. If any of you were here at the time when we talked about Bill's story, Ebby knocks on the door. Bill opens the door. Not a word is said. Not a word is said, but Bill has a response. Anybody remember what Bill's response was when he got a gander at Ebby? You can just unmute and chime in if you remember. Robbie, please.
There was something about his eyes.
There was something about his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He was different.
He found God.
He found God. He didn't know that. But thank you, Colleen. He didn't know that at the time. Bill didn't know that at the time. But he knew before Ebby said a word There was something different about him. I could see it in his eyes. Ebby was demonstrating to Bill the impact. And he wasn't like, I'm guessing Ebby wasn't trying to be spiritual. He wasn't like coming in all googly eyed. It wasn't about making an impression. It was about having done the work. He did the work. So it's the relationship between the new person and those who have done the work. The second relationship is the relationship of the newcomer to God. Because in my own journey, I've seen that's where the willingness comes from. It's from my higher power. So when these two relationships with the recovered member and with God have worked together in the correct way, I then became ready to take certain steps. And then we have a warning. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. And I won't go into length about what that is or how it manifests, but I'll just mention, because ultimately what I believe is that the steps, it's not, we sometimes say it's a formula like making a cake, and in one sense it is. But it's about, and forgive me if I sound too fancy here, but it really does get to this. It's about dismantling our worldview and surrendering everything about ourselves through which we feel a sense of uniqueness and identity, because that's what it takes to be sober. And the tendency to balk at doing that and to rationalize shortcuts so we can hold on to our, as it says, our old ideas. We wouldn't be human if we didn't have that response. So, but we could not. And then the next sentence is a direction with all the earnestness, which an earnestness is a seriousness. With all the seriousness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And then we end out the paragraph with a warning again. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. And of course, we can think about what does letting go absolutely mean. I think it means something different for everybody, but I think it ultimately means, in my own experience, the surrender of my way of seeing the world and moving through the world. Again, if it were just about and I think one of the things that's clear is he's saying it's not about just not drinking. And then we are, the next sentence, the next two sentences is about our warnings. Remember that we deal with alcohol? Cunning, baffling, powerful. That was a warning. Until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and heard people talk about alcohol, I knew that I did really horrible things when I was drunk. But in my mind, that was the result of drunkenness. The fact that alcohol and the disease worked on my mind in the way that it did when I was not drinking, that was a revelation to me. And it may seem like common knowledge to all of us here, but I think it's important that we recognize that some people may not have yet connected those dots. And without help, it is too much for us. And another warning, of course. But then a major reward. But there is one who has all power. And power is, I looked this up, power is one of those words that has about 10 different meanings or definitions in the book. And I thought that there were two that were equally important and that equally need to be considered. The first was sort of the most basic, and power is the ability to do something. Like, I have the power to lift this pen, okay? So what he's saying is there is one who has all power, all ability, the ability to do anything and everything. But power means other things as well. And one of the other key things that power means is authority. And I guess in my relationship with my higher power, it took me a while to acknowledge or really internalize both those aspects of what God's power meant. It's like it was almost easier for me to acknowledge that he had the ability to do anything. Yeah, God can do anything. But he also has all authority, meaning he's calling all the shots. That was the harder part for me, which is another definition about power. And then the direction. May you find him now. So with that, I've gone a little over. Thank you for indulging me. I'm going to open it up. I did post some questions for reflection, or Rich posted them, so thank you, Rich. And I'll just put those out there if you want to share about those. First one, have I previously observed my own inability to be honest with myself? And if so, what did that teach me? 2, how have I responded to those who may have been constitutionally incapable? And 3, what kind of easier, softer ways have I attempted over the years? Look at the hands. And let's open it up.